Alrighty, joining me now here on the My Sports Update football podcast. He is an NFL Network host and the host of the NFL Red Zone channel, Mr. Every Touchdown from Every Game. It is Scott Hanson. What's going on, Scott? How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, man. All things considered. Good to be with you, Ari.
I appreciate you coming on. Let's get right into it because for years now, I've been using Red Zone every single Sunday, and I think it's safe to say that every sports fan in the world right now could sit back and watch Red Zone right now with Scott Hanson behind the desk.
Well, I appreciate it, my man.
So I want to go back to when this all started because you were already at NFL Network before Red Zone began. But how did they choose you to be the guy? Did you approach them? Did they approach you? Was there an audition? How did Scott Hanson get the gig to call every touchdown from every game on Sundays?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a blessing to be sitting in the captain's chair for the show that people tell me all the time has changed the way they watch football. And look, I'm a football junkie. I think people that watch the show can tell that as well. If I wasn't hosting the channel, I'd be watching it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's as fun for me to host as it is for people to watch. And to answer your question specifically, I had heard in the summer of 2009 that the NFL was going to start NFL Red Zone and, the concept and everything. And I was like, this thing is going to be huge. I've absolutely thought if it was done well, this would be huge. And the reason I thought that is I was a roving reporter, if you will, for NFL Network prior to becoming NFL Red Zone host. And when I was the roving reporter, I would fly to Foxborough for the Patriots-Jets game Sunday at 1 o'clock, and I'd be up in the press box watching the Jets and the Patriots play on the field at Gillette, but I'd have my laptop open, and I'd be elbowing the writers and the TV guys to the left of me and the right of me saying, hey, Adrian Peterson's over 100 yards in the first half in Minnesota. Aaron Rodgers is having an amazing game, whatever the story was somewhere else. And so I was even captivated by the game that was right in front of me. I was always interested in what was going on elsewhere in the NFL. And I always wanted to talk about it, share it as it was going on in real time. So I guess my own passions married pretty well with what the channel was going to demand out of its host. So I called up one of the executives at NFL Network. I said, hey, is it true that we're starting NFL Red Zone? He said, yep. I said, who do you got to host it? He's like, well, we're looking at a handful of people. And I said, is my name on the list? He said, yep. I said, I want it. So they did an audition with a handful of people. And the audition was interesting because stamina and ad lib power over 7 hours are two of the things that are really required out of that role. And so the audition for television, a typical audition is 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
They put you up on the set, they have you talk, read the teleprompter, do some crosstalk with a co-host. They want to see how you look and how you sound. 10 minutes usually. For NFL Red Zone, the audition was 5 hours.
Wow.
They used a week of games from the season prior. Again, this is like in June when I'm auditioning, so there's nothing going on game fields. So they took like 9 games from a random week from the season before, queued them all up to the kickoff and said, talk. And for 5 hours, we did it with multiple games. And I was flop sweating right through my suit, trying to keep up with everything. I had no idea how it looked or how it sounded afterwards. I was like, I don't know if I nailed that or if I just embarrassed myself. But a couple of weeks later, after they had auditioned everybody, the executive producer of NFL Network called me up and said, hey, Scott, we want to offer you the hosting role of NFL Red Zone. And the rest is history.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you knew when you got the gig that this is going to be something big and as big as it's become now.
100%. 100%.
So you've been doing it now for 11th season, which is just crazy how fast time is flying. But
yeah.
Was there ever a point in the beginning where you went like, holy cow, this is too much, 10 games at once, touchdown after touchdown, too many people in my ears? Was there ever a point like that? It had to be stressful, right?
Oh, yeah. I sometimes refer to that as riding the dragon. Like when the action, it still happens to me today. In the early years it happened where it was almost overwhelming, and depending on how a given Sunday afternoon plays out, it can happen to me today,
Yeah.
where I don't get like flustered. You got to remain calm in those times. I always tell our staff, we have to behave the way we demand our favorite football players behave.
Mm-hmm.
When you're down 2 touchdowns with 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter and you got no timeouts left, are you going to panic, or do you want your favorite football players to bite down, laser lock focus, and say, this ain't over, we can overcome the challenge that's in front of us right now? And so, yeah, when we've got 8 games and 6 of them are 1 possession games, and they're all with 2 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter, and 3 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks are trailing and have the football right around midfield, which one are you going to go to? Or which 2 are you going to put in the double box? Or which 3 are you going to go to in a triple box? It gets crazy, and it feels almost overwhelming, but then that's exactly what we need to do. We need to perform the way we demand our favorite football players perform. We want them to be excellent at the toughest, most adverse times in their careers. We should perform and behave in the same way.
Yep, and as crazy as it is for you guys, those are the best moments for us who watch Red Zone every single Sunday.
Totally.
Yeah, 100%. You know, Scott, you obviously have a whole staff who does Red Zone with you. What exactly is the preparation like during the week as you get closer to Sunday? Because I hear from play-by-play guys that tell me preparing for one game is a load. How do you get prepared for all the games that you're going to have on a given Sunday?
So I liken it to this. If you go back to your college days, you may have had a professor that liked to give the final exam in essay form. And a lot of times my college professors at Syracuse University, if they did an essay exam for the final exam, you'd go in on like Monday and they'd say, okay, the final exam's on Friday. It's an essay exam. It's going to examine everything that you've learned this whole semester. Here are a list of 10 essay questions. 3 of them will be on the final exam. Well, which 3 do you study? If you're a diligent student, you study all 10, because what the professor's trying to do is trying to get you those 10 questions represent everything that you learned in a semester, but in a 90-minute final exam, you don't have time to do, all those. You got to designate that time, wisely. So you study all 10 of them. And then when you show up on Friday, the 3 that are on the exam, you're ready for them. Okay. Now, there's the analogy. How do we put that in football terms? On any given Sunday, I've got 11, 12, 13 games roughly that I'm dealing with. Which of those are going to have the fantastic finish? Which of those are going to have the last second comeback? Which of those are going to have the incredible play or boneheaded coaching decision or whatever? You don't know. So which ones do you study? You study all 11, 12, or 13. And so my preparation, let's say middle of the season, my preparation is ongoing. Sunday night, I go home from Red Zone. I watch Sunday Night Football, and then I watch all the highlight shows. I watch NFL Network highlight shows. I watch ESPN highlight shows to see if we missed anything on Red Zone that happened on a Sunday. And usually I'm pretty gratified that I don't see too many highlights that we didn't already pass along to our audience. Then Monday, okay, all the coaches have their postmortem news conferences and everything and injury updates. So I'm following those throughout the day. Monday Night Football happens, and then boom, that's the end of the week. So now we look ahead to the next week's games. On Tuesday, my research staff, or our research staff at NFL Network, they're awesome. They send me a 100, 200-page packet on Tuesday night, and it recaps everything that happened in the week before, and it looks forward to anything that we think could happen the week to come. I start plowing through that. Wednesday is open locker room. Players' sound bites come out. Maybe somebody said something controversial or dramatic or whatever. That develops a storyline. Thursday, injury reports start coming. Friday, injury reports start coming. On Thursday and Friday, I like to create my own spreadsheets, by the way. I use my own stats that are just kind of cookie cutter week to week I use, but it helps me to fill up my tool belt with anything that could be coming up in the week ahead. So it's hours and hours and hours on websites, watching TV shows, talking to our reporters that hopefully build me up with a reservoir of knowledge that when the actuality happens on Sunday, I'm prepared to talk about it.
So
It's a
it's
heck of
literally,
an endeavor.
yeah, it's literally a grind. So what would be the morning routine on a Sunday itself? Because people have to remember you're on the West Coast, so games really start
True.
at 11 a.m. by you. Are you a
10 a.m.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, 10 a.m. You're right.
Yep.
So are you a coffee guy? How does your day start on Sundays?
Yeah, so Sunday I wake up. I'm in Los Angeles. I wake up about 5 a.m. I flip on NFL Network, start watching the pregame show. I jump in the shower. I'm not a coffee drinker. All I need to get going in the morning
Really?
is a shower. Yep. I do not drink coffee, which is beneficial because, coffee can go right through you from what I'm told from coffee drinkers.
Which is
And
true, yes.
bathroom breaks are a luxury on NFL Red Zone that I cannot afford. So take a shower, go into the studio. I like to be the first one in the studio. I usually am. Maybe there's an engineer in there doing some wiring or something like that. But I like to be the first one in the studio. I set up my papers on my desk, and then I go grab breakfast. There's a chef at NFL Network in our cafeteria that makes me the same dense, protein, salty breakfast so I can retain water. I eat that a little after 6 a.m., and then I cut off. All foods, all liquids are cut off for the next probably 10 hours or so. The last 3 hours leading up to showtime, and then all the way through the 7 hours of showtime. Yeah, I don't eat or drink anything for like 11 hours probably for the rest of the Sunday until I'm back on my free time after the show. Then we have a production meeting what the production meeting is about 2 hours before the show. Production meeting lasts almost an hour. We talk about all the staff talks about all of the storylines, milestones, matchups that we look forward to in the games that day. And then we rehearse the opening of the show, the first on camera when you see me saying hello to everybody. That's the only scripted part of the whole show.
Yeah.
The first 2 minutes of the show are usually scripted. I write a little something out to get everyone fired up for the day. And then when the first kickoff happens and I announce 7 hours of commercial-free football start now, we are rocking and rolling for the 7 straight hours. It's a fun day. Exhausting, but fun.
Well, it definitely sounds exhausting, Scott. Every Sunday on Red Zone is fun, but what was the craziest NFL Sunday you can remember from hosting the show all these years?
Oh, I love touchdowns, right? Who doesn't love
Who
touchdowns?
doesn't? Yeah.
Everybody plays fantasy football and whatnot. We
Yeah.
show the touchdown total at the end of every show.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we show the touchdown total when we get up into the 70s. We are seeing some scoring.
Yeah.
We've been, our lowest ever for a week is usually we have 1 week, maybe when there's a lot of buys, or maybe it's Thanksgiving week where there's 3 games on Thursday. We usually dip down once below 50 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
But usually we're in between 50 and 60 touchdowns. 50 to 65 touchdowns is about average. Then we go into the 70s every once in a while. And when we hit that, it just feels like every 10 minutes there's a touchdown, or every 5 minutes there's a touchdown. And that's a lot of fun, because when I'm hosting the show, I picture people watching the show and they're playing fantasy football, and maybe their fantasy football opponent for that week is sitting next to them on the couch, right? It's their buddy, it's their colleague from work, it's their brother, it's their sister, whoever. And every time we show a touchdown, it has the potential to impact someone's fantasy matchup that week. And I just picture people sitting there and just howling back and forth and trash talking and lamenting and rejoicing and all the emotions that you go through playing fantasy football. So when you get up into the 70s in touchdowns, that just magnifies that moment even more. So without naming one specific week where I said it was my favorite, any week, and we always have 1 or 2 every season that hit up into the 70s, is just that's good stuff.
Yeah, that's Red Zone heaven, basically, when you hit the 70s.
Yeah.
I think 99% of fans love Red Zone. They love Scott Hanson. But there's always that, 1% on Twitter that goes, oh, my God, Scott, go back to the Browns game. And it drives me nuts. Yeah. It drives me nuts when I see it. Can we settle it once and for all? Explain to people just how much is going on at once during the early windows especially.
I'm glad you brought this up, Ari, and here's why. Everybody loves NFL Red Zone. Everybody. I mean, we're 98% of people that I've ever heard from love NFL Red Zone. But it's not perfect. There is a negative to it. And the negative is this. we, by doing our jobs well, and I speak for my staff here, our staff, which is the best staff in sports television for my money.
Amazing.
We have done a good enough job that we have spawned a generation of wannabe television executives. Everybody thinks they are a TV producer when they're watching Red Zone. No, not Dallas, Atlanta. No, why Green Bay? Come on. Are you seeing what's going on down in Tampa? Oh, come on. You've already shown the Jets too much. Why not the Ravens? Everybody thinks they know where we should be at some given time. Because whatever, they're sitting there with their phone in their lap, and they've got Twitter up, and Twitter said something goes on, and they haven't seen it live on Red Zone, and they think we're going to forget about it or something like that. So what I have to ask for to you and your audience, maybe not to you because it sounds like you're already good with it.
I'm all in, yeah.
Okay, thank you. To your audience who would gripe about what game we're on at any given time, you have to trust us. You are watching NFL Red Zone. I am watching 9 games at the same time. So you might think you know where you're going. I'm watching all 9, and my producer and I are making value-based decisions moment by moment by moment. Virtually every 30 seconds, we are making a value-based judgment based on who's playing, what's the score, what's the time on the clock, how many timeouts left, who has the football, are there playoff implications in this game, is there some crazy storyline that's happening right now at this game, what are the other we are making value-based judgments based on multiple factors. And you can gripe and say, we don't know what we're doing, or you can trust us. I hope that we've built up enough goodwill capital with our audience to be trusted to make the right decisions. Besides, if there's a touchdown, you know you're going to see it.
Yeah.
And if we weren't on it live, you're going to see it 15 seconds later. Just buckle your seatbelt and enjoy the ride is what I would implore your audience to do. So thank you for letting me get on that soapbox.
Yes. In 11 years, you've never missed one touchdown. I know this for a fact. People say it's every touchdown from every game. Forget about that. You guys do more than that, of course. It's every big turnover, every big play, every insane catch. Everything is on there. You can't miss it. Doesn't matter. You might miss it 10 seconds later. Everything's going to be fine. Yeah. So, let's wrap this up. I usually do this quick 5 here. So 5 questions. Try to keep it short. If you want to expand on anything, don't worry about it. Go for it.
Got it. So
I know you're a big fantasy guy. You talked about it before. Who is your biggest fantasy sleeper for the 2020 season? You're letting out a secret, but.
I hope my colleagues who I play against aren't listening to this. I like, and he's not a sleeper because people know about him, but I like DK Metcalf to be underdrafted. I think DK Metcalf's going to go in the 3rd round in some drafts, maybe. People really like him, might draft him 2nd. I would not be surprised to see him be a 1st-round pick 2 years from now. And that's when you want to get on a guy is, before he becomes that breakout guy. So I like DK Metcalf. I mean, physicality, route running was his question. Boom. He answered that. And he's got one of the best quarterbacks in the game to get him the ball.
100%. Russell Wilson. He's the man. He's one of the best quarterbacks in all of football. What about your favorite player to watch growing up?
Good question. Okay. I'm an old man here. Okay. I'm 48 years old and I grew up in the Detroit area. Billy Sims. When he came out of Oklahoma and was the number 1 pick in the draft and used to get on the goal line, and you can go YouTube, Billy Sims over the top. He would dive over the top of the pile like we've seen Walter Payton do, LaDainian Tomlinson like to do it for a while. There aren't a lot of guys who do it nowadays, but he would take a handoff 4 yards in the backfield and go over the top. My brother and I used to set up our couch in our living room and run down the linoleum floor hallway, slipping in our socks, and jump over the top of the couch, landing on the cushions that we positioned on the ground, and we called it Billy Sims over the top, and we would play that game for an hour at a time, just crashing all over the place. I loved watching Billy Sims, particularly at the goal line.
I love Billy Sims. What a throwback name. What about your answer cannot be the Chiefs, but make a prediction, one team that we'll see a lot of in the red zone in 2020.
I can't say the Chiefs. Okay,
you can't
fine.
use the Chiefs. Come on.
Then give me the Baltimore Ravens. I'll take the other elite offense in the NFL these days. You're going to see Baltimore. You're going to see Kansas City. You are going to see Tampa Bay in the red zone a lot this year. Remember, Tampa Bay had a top 4 scoring offense last year.
Yeah.
With Jameis throwing 30 interceptions and having multiple fumbles. They had a top 4 scoring offense. If Brady cuts those turnovers down, which of course he's going to, maybe his touchdown total won't be up there with Jameis's, who had 33 last year. But let's just say Brady goes for 25 touchdowns and only 10 interceptions. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be a very good offense this year.
You know, you bring up Tom Brady, and you've mentioned how Tom Brady watches the red zone when he's on a bye or on Thursday night or Monday night. Were you surprised when Tom left New England for Tampa Bay? This is question number 4.
Look, I never say never, man. If you would have told me Peyton Manning wouldn't finish his career as an Indianapolis Colt, if you'd have told me Joe Montana wouldn't finish his career as a San Francisco 49er, or Jerry Rice or Emmitt Smith as a Dallas Cowboy, I've seen the NFL too much to know that you never say never. So, no, I wasn't surprised. And I thought that either Belichick or Brady would want to prove that they could do it on their own. This year, they both get the chance.
Alrighty, last one here. I asked this question to almost all my guests. Which team for you is the up-and-coming team for you in the NFL?
I mean, a team that hasn't been there, like a non-playoff team, or
well, it could be a non-playoff team. It could be a playoff team that you think takes the next step up.
Up and coming.
Yeah. Give some hope to some fans here.
How about the Buffalo Bills? Okay, Buffalo's been, now they touched into the play, they had the playoff drought forever, and they've touched into the playoffs now in the recent years. But with Brady out of the division and the New England Patriots maybe suffering a little bit, Buffalo could break through, and it wouldn't shock me tremendously to even see them contend for the division and maybe win the division title.
Yep, those fans will love that. They made the playoffs last year, but winning the division would be something else there in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Before we wrap this up, please give it to me, Scott. Could you say it 7 hours of commercial-free football? You got to do it here, man.
Okay, so, Ari, I had a guy. I live in Los Angeles. I was at my local grocery store. I pulled my car into the parking lot. I popped my trunk, and I'm pulling out my, bags, recyclable bags that I use, and I'm just getting ready to walk into the grocery store. I'm in the parking lot. Nice sunny day here in L.A. This is a year or two ago. And I hear from like 2 or 3 cars over in the parking lot, "Give it to me. Give it to me." It's a guy's voice, and I'm like, what in the? I look over, he's making eye contact with me, and it registered with me at that moment. He recognized me, and he wanted me to do it. So I'm like, okay, I try and aim to please here. So, Ari, for you and for your podcast listeners, 7 hours of commercial-free football start now. And let's hope I'm saying that early September.
You're the man, Scott. I am hoping as well. We hear you say that September 13th, week 1 of the NFL season, and everything is back to normal. Make sure to follow Scott on Twitter. It is at Scott Hanson. Scott, I appreciate the time, man. Stay safe, and we're going to keep in touch.
Good to be with you, Ari. Take care, bud.